Hi everybody, I hope you were all well. It's been a week since you last saw me. I've been busy with work, and yesterday I took a trip into town, continuing to deal with my, anxiety issues. I took a solo trip into town, my first one for about, I think, 3 months. And yeah, it was good. I went around town, I looked in various shops, bought myself some treats to have for dinner last night, and yeah, and just bought various things that I needed. But I bought some things that I suppose you could say I didn't need, but I couldn't resist temptation, guys. The first time ever since I started this channel, I've broken my plan, as it were, for the year, because I said that I was only going to buy books that I had planned to buy already, for the year, which in this case was 2. So it was the Agatha Christie biography by Lucy Wears You due out in October, and the new Cormoran Strike book, which we now have confirmed is the date of the 30th of August, and that was it. But I walked into Waterstones yesterday and I bought 6 books. These books, I put them on my to buy list for next year, and one of them was half price, one of them was signed, and 2 of them were under an offer. And I'm like, ugh. So I couldn't, and I was by myself, so no one was there to stop me, and I was just a bit like, you know what, I've had a really tough few weeks with work. It's been so brutally stressful, and that I feel like I needed a bit of a pick-me-up, and so I picked up some books. So but to say that I've been doing these challenges since 2016 and I have yet to falter on any of them, and we're now in 2022, I think I deserve a bit of a stumble. So, but now I'm not planning to buy any more books other than those 2 books I had planned to buy this year. So yeah, it was a little stumble yesterday, but I picked myself up from it and we're carrying on forward with the plan. So but yeah, what else? I've been listening to a lot of Potterless, which I mentioned last week. I am now up to the beginning of Deathly Hallows. The guy who runs a podcast, him reading the Deathly Hallows. So yeah, I'm getting there. I'm about a third of the way through the number of episodes of that. Oh no, actually, it might only be between a quarter and a third, I'd say, because he's got about 200 episodes of this podcast. So yeah, so plowing through, getting there. And I've been listening to the Bridgerton official podcast as well. I've also got into watching Unsolved Mysteries the other day on Netflix, and I've been doing my watching all of Supernatural. I've finished series 3 of that, and yeah, I've managed to read a book as well this week, so I've been a busy bee. So yeah, very busy. But anyway, enough about that. I'm here to talk about the book I've been reading this week, which is The Turn of the Screw and Other Stories by Henry James. Now, in case you haven't seen my previous videos talking about this, I had read The Turn of the Screw when I was about 13 years old. It was I remember, a specific hardback kind of an anthology book that I read for school. It was part of our English class, so everyone had to read it and everyone had to log like each evening or each day how far they got through, and then when you got through you got given another book. And of course, being me, I've read the whole book in one go, so it was very easy for me. But I remember The Turn of the Screw like really intriguing me, and it was I think I must be in about 13, yeah, because in 1999 the TV drama was on Christmas 1999 on ITV here in the UK, and I remember my grandparents were over for Christmas and we sat and we watched it, and I remember remarking, oh, that's different from the book, because I just read it. And I think the anthology book that I had, this children's, well, teen, as it were, collection of the book, I think it had a different ending, because I remember talking to my grandmother saying, this isn't right compared to what I read. So I don't know if this collection they'd changed some stuff. I can't remember about any of the other stories in that anthology collection, just The Turn of the Screw. So clearly it had an impact on me. Anyway, time passes. I've seen a couple of other adaptations of The Turn of the Screw, not picked up the short story, should I say, and not read any other Henry James books. So I've gone into this in a way knowing the story, but also in a way completely blind, because I can't remember Henry James's writing. I couldn't remember, specific tones of the way he wrote or anything like that. I just remember it having an impact on me. And so I was like, okay, let's see how we go with this. So this collection has 4 stories in it. It says The Turn of the Screw. Let me get the actual contents, because I always get, so Sir Edmund Orme, Orme, it's because it's O-R-M-E, so I'm like, do I pronounce the E or is it silent? So that's the one where I was like, I need to check the name while I'm looking at the contents, because I was like, I can't remember. Then Owen Wingrave, then The Friends of the Friends, and then The Turn of the Screw. So they're all ghost related stories. I believe they're in order of him, publication order, but I don't know if he had stories published between these. It just happens that these 4 are ghost stories, and so they've put them in the published order there. And yeah, so I've gone into this quite blind. Oh, I forgot to say also, the thing that led me to buy this was that right when the pandemic began, the trailer dropped for a film called The Turning, which is based on The Turn of the Screw, and I thought it looked interesting, but it was like a modern retelling of it. And previously to that, I'd only ever seen adaptations which were based in Victorian times, the same time that the actual short story is set. So I was like, oh, this looks interesting, but that looks a bit weird. And so I was like, you know what? It's been so long, I'd like to read it before I see it. I never got around to see The Turning because of the pandemic. So that screwed up that plan. But I finally got around to reading this. So as I said, this has 4 short stories. They're all ghost stories. And yeah, I went into it knowing the story of Turn of the Screw, but then at the same time completely blind. And I did enjoy it, but I think that out of the 4, The Turn of the Screw is the only one that's really worthwhile reading. Now the other ones are they're pretty good ghost stories, and I do like that he played with narrative in that you automatically assume, oh, the ghost must be evil, la 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 la. Not in all cases. They're not always there to harm, they're also there to help. And a ghost is not necessarily an evil entity. So I did like the fact that he played with those kind of tropes and narrative and such. But the thing is, I want to just make clear, the first 3 stories combined are about 100 pages. The Turn of the Screw by itself is about 130 pages. So The Turn of the Screw, you get a lot more time and a lot more breathing space, whilst the other 3, it's very constricted. It is literally just blocks of description text with very little dialogue thrown in there. So I think that's why I felt a disconnection to myself and characters. I felt it was too fast-paced in some places. I felt like it didn't have that much atmosphere. It didn't have the depth that I wanted it to go. But as soon as I started The Turn of the Screw, everything changed. And just to read you the very first line of The Turn of the Screw. So you had this sort of introduction where this guy is saying, look, I've come across this telling of this woman's story from her perspective from 20, she's been dead for over 20 years, and it's such an intriguing story, and he's telling his friends about it, and they're like, oh, read it to us, da 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 da. And then first chapter starts, and it said, I remember the whole beginning as a succession of flights and drops, a little seesaw of the right throbs and the wrong. And I was like, ooh, that is a strong opening sentence. That's I like that. I like that very, very much. And so I felt like this I feel more comfortable in. I have read short stories, of course, you know, I have. I don't have a wide range of short stories that I have read, but I have read them, obviously. But so in order to have 3 whole short stories that are only combined only 100 pages, compared to a short story that's 130 pages, I will go for the 130 page one. It's a novella. It's got that extra breathing space. It's got that time. And The Turn the Screw uses the time and the space beautifully. It not only helps to build atmosphere and to understand character, it uses the silent spaces to creep in the horror in such a beautiful way. So, for example, there is this bit where the governor, it's about a governess. I should have said that, shouldn't I? I'm so sorry. I've just realised I haven't explained what it's about. A very naive governess comes to a house called Bly Manor to look after 2 children who live there. And she's employed by the children's uncle, who's basically said, look, their parents have died. I've kind of, you know, become their ward. I've got to work in London. I need you to look after the kids, basically, at my manor, Bly Manor. And there's, you know, there's a couple of servants there. Just, you know, look after the kids for me. Now, again, just let me know how they're doing. So he's completely disconnected from them, but his kind of a connection, as it were, to our lead character. So she goes to Bly Manor, and the kids seem a bit odd, but, you know, they're not like evil or, you know, things to be concerned about. And then one day when she is walking around the manor, she sees a man stood on the top of a tower, because there's a tower as part of the structure of the manor, and with fiery red hair, and this man is watching her, and she kind of looks away from it, and he walks, he's watching her, he's following her as she's walking around, and she kind of looks away and walks on a bit and looks back, and he's gone. And she reports this to the maid, and it's like, no, there's no one there of that description here, love. And it begins this unraveling of discovering who this entity is, why it's there, and a possible connection with the children. So, yes, and it has one of the most startling, brutal endings that you can expect, but I'll talk about that in a minute. Anyway, the scene I was talking about, to explain the silences, there's a bit where she has been with the children, and she's become completely freaked out by something that she has seen, and she runs, kind of, you know, going into the house, and she stops still, and it's just this silence that just fills the air, and she feels like there's something in the room with her, and she's kind of slowly turned around, and that slowness, that ability to just extend the moment, really brings up the chill factor, and so gets you creeped out. And I can totally understand why this is such a classic, for his technique of doing that in such a wonderful, controlled manner, but yet it's still quite swift, because there is a lot of stuff that goes down in this novella, guys. It's not like only a couple of things happen, so he really does have that time. No, there's a lot of stuff going on in this novella. So for him to get the balance of the stillness and the chilling, along with the fast pace and the bam, it's it's just wonderful to read. It truly is. As I said, it's got one of the most shocking endings of a book, and it's so blunt. It's just bang, the end, and you're like, what the fuck? It's yeah. I love the fact to how it is a very psychological story, and even other characters question our lead, going, are you sure you were seeing what you were seeing? Because what some people see might not be what other people see and such. And yeah, I found it a wonderful read, the Turn of the Screw. Now the other stories, as I said, they are much shorter. You don't have the time. It's like you're constantly on the go, as it were, but you don't have that same atmosphere and such. And as I said, I don't know how many of the books and the stories are between each of these. The first one, I think, was actually his first ever published story, and in a way, as you read through them, you do see his writing improve. So it was very interesting to read those stories and watch this writer just improve and improve and improve, and then just like throw the Turn of the Screw in front of you and go, what? It's just, it's wonderful. So the Turn of the Screw is a great way to finish this collection, but then at the same time, my concern is that people, depending on their knowledge of Thomas Hardy and such, or lack of knowledge of his writing, might find it a struggle to get through the other stories until you hit the Turn of the Screw. But then that's the thing about short stories and novellas. You don't necessarily have to read them in the order that it's just so happened that they're published. So like the next time I pick this up, I'm most likely going to read the Turn of the Screw first before I look at the other ones. It's inevitable, because that one is the one that stood out for me. It's very interesting also, there's a load of like introductions and various reviews of the time and such, and analysis of the text within this as well. So it's not just literally the short stories and that's all you get. So I did learn some things about Thomas Hardy and how his stories were perceived. And I love the fact that there is this review, and it's on the back here, on the back of the book, and it's one line from The Independent in 1899 saying, the most hopelessly evil story that we have ever read. And it kind of is the Turn of the Screw, but the juxtaposition of, you know, the evil and, you know, what is actually going on. Is this actually happening? Now, in some adaptations, which I will talk about in a moment, make it very clear that it is happening, and the governess is just being targeted by the ghost in the house. Whereas in other adaptations, it leaves it the question open. Is she, you know, is she having a psychological breakdown? Is it a case of that this is all in her imagination? It's a really tough, and I think perhaps it's constantly asking those questions is what has kept it so intriguing for audiences over the years. It's kind of like when you look at other ghost stories, when you look at, I think that's you know, like say The Woman in Black by Susan Hill. That people love that book, and Susan Hill herself has said, I don't, you know, seeing how big it's gotten in the, you know, the film or film, should I say, because they did a second one, and the stage adaptations and various other adaptations there have been, she's been quite taken aback by how popular it is, and she's wondered why is that case. And I think, yeah, it's the mystery, it's the Victorian, you know, that thing that we don't have, like the white noise of that we have now with like television and phones and all that lot that we use, technology that we use. It was silence and candlelight and, you know, things going bump in the night. There's something about it that just intrigues us as viewers. And so yeah, I think having this kind of open question as to what is real, what is not real, and is this a story, just a psychological breakdown of a woman, or is this something else? Is there something more sinister and more evil about this manor? Yeah, I love all of these questions that are just completely left open, and Henry James just comes along and just goes, boom, deal with it, and walks away, as it were. He's just brilliant. So yeah, I definitely would recommend that if you read this, also read the various appendix, the introduction, really get to know about Henry James and such, and yeah, see how it goes. I was gonna do a reading, but I'm not now because I'm over 20 minutes into this. And I haven't yet talked about adaptation stuff yet, which I was going to. But yeah, it's really opened my eyes to Henry James's writing. I definitely think I would possibly want to explore kind of more of his stuff. But at the moment, because, you know, I've got to get through my massive to be read list stack of books which are upstairs in my study, and I definitely don't have any more of his works, then yeah, I think it's something for me to look to in the future when I've got the breathing space to do it. Maybe I should, because I've said about how like I'd like to read Middlemarch and such, so maybe I need to have some time where I only focus on classics or something. Maybe that's something to look to when my various stacks of books upstairs are dealt with. But yeah, we'll just have to see. So when it comes to adaptations, now, as I mentioned, there is the 1999 TV version, ITV version. I had a look on YouTube. I could only find like scenes from it. I couldn't find the actual full thing, so I might just you know, I'll put in the description like maybe a scene or something from it. That's the most vivid one that I particularly remember growing up with, because it was the same year that I read The Turn the Screw. It was that Christmas that it was on TV, and I remember like various characters, and a thing that really got to me. And that scene, like I said, you know, where the governess is running through, and then she just stops and she slowly turns around. They do that scene, and she runs to the room and stops in front of the camera, and it just goes silent, and she's just standing there, and she knows that something is behind her, and you just hear this echo of a cry, and she turns around, and there's this woman crying at the desk when she wasn't there before, and it's like, oh my god, it sent chills down my spine when I watched it. And so I still vividly remember that scene, because it's not available and there's only scenes that I've been able to find on YouTube. I haven't been able to rewatch it, which is annoying. 2009, BBC did a version with Michelle Dockery and Dan Stevens from Downton Abbey. Dan Stevens played the inspector who wanted to talk to Michelle Dockery, who played the governess, about what happened at the house. And even though that I remember watching it at the time and going, yes, it gets the tone, but at the same time, this is wrong. This doesn't feel right. There's something off kilter here. And to be honest, I think it was Michelle Dockery. I mean, she's not a bad actress at all, but it just kind of felt like in the novella, and also, you know, the 1999 adaptation that I saw, the naivety of the governess comes through, and in a way she is naive, but at the same time I kind of felt like the way that Michelle played her, yes, you could see her as being naive, but at the same time I could see her standing up to those children and going, what the hell, you know, getting really angry at them about various things that happen. So when the ending happened, it wasn't this bang kind of moment, like the novella punches you in the gut with it. And I think the 1999 one does as well, but the 2009 one was just a bit meh. And the very final shot, which is to do with a coach driver, I'm not going to give any you know, spoiler, but if you have watched it, you know what I mean with the coach driver. That shot really, really annoyed me, because it's the whole point is that because it's an inspector guy and him trying to figure out what happened, is that nobody knows what really happened. So to then do that final shot with the coach driver unravels the whole point of the story. So why did they do it? So that's a director point, you know, director, writer, whoever adapted it. Again, that is not available on YouTube, but I found the trailer, so I will include the trailer in the description. I mentioned that there's a Henry James collection that I got from Audible, which included The Turn the Screw, but I haven't been able to listen to it because I've been listening to Potterless and the Bridgerton Official podcast. But once I listen to it, I will let you guys know. I will include a link to that from the Audible website as well, so you can see that. So yeah, and when it comes to The Turning, when I found that I had picked this out of the jar, I had a look, I googled it, and I was like, The Turning, Netflix, and it said it was available. So I was like, yay, after I finished reading this, I can watch it. Went on to Netflix yesterday after I finished reading this, only to find it's not available on Netflix UK. So I haven't been able to watch it, guys, but I will include the trailer to that as well. I think it's available in US version of Netflix, but not UK, unfortunately. So yeah, I mean, I liked the look of it, but at the same time, I was just a bit like, whoa, that's a bit, whoa. Like this whole thing with Miles, the son, there was a bit where he was on the train, he was like lying on the ground with a spider coming out of his mouth, and it's like, yeah, that didn't happen in a novella. You know, it was just a bit like, and that was me before I even reread this the last time, having read it when I was 13. So I even knew that that didn't happen, and I was like, what are they doing? What are they doing? So yeah, I think it looks interesting, but at the same time I just know I'm going to be going, oh god, no, I don't like this, I don't like this. But you know, until I watch it, I can't judge, I know. So yeah, we'll just have to see if I'm able to get hold of that. So overall, I feel like with this particular collection, the only one that's really worth reading is The Turn of the Screw, but all of the detail in the introduction and the appendix and everything is also really interesting to read about Henry James and getting to know about him. So yeah, it's been an interesting read for sure. I'm glad that I've read it. I'm very, very intriguing. And the little boy on the cover is just like, oh, it's a portrait of a child, because that's the thing about Oxford World Classics, they use portraits and such, old paintings and that. I just like the glare of the child just watching, and because it's ghost stories and such, and children are involved. So there you go. So how do I feel about this book? Would I read this again? Yes, definitely would. I'm not so sure I would read the first 3 short stories again, but I definitely would read The Turn of the Screw again. Would I read any more of Henry James's books? Yes, for certain. I just said I definitely want to look into his other works. I know actually on that Audible drama set that I got, I think the next one, because I've listened to like The American, and there was another one as well that was really long that I listened to, I think the next one on that list, that drama list, is Portrait of a Lady, which is a classic that I've never kind of gone towards. So maybe that's the next one for me to read after I've gone through my to be read list and everything. I don't know, but yeah, I think I would like to look into more Henry James when I've got the chance to, after getting through all of the books upstairs on my study. Would I recommend this to anyone? Yes, I definitely would. But as I said, you know, the first 3 short stories might be a bit of a miss for them, but definitely say to read the introduction and the appendix to get more insight into Henry James, and of course would definitely recommend The Turn of the Screw. Alright then guys, that's it. So have you read this or this collection or any of his short stories before? Please let me know in the comment box below, or you can give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, entirely to your side, and I'll be back with my thoughts on my next read, which is Love and Louis XIV, The Women in the Life of the Sun King by Antonia Fraser. This one's a bit more bulkier, and of course, as I said, I'm not putting pressure on myself this year, so it might be a couple of weeks before you get a review from me of this book. We'll just have to see. Depends on how I feel. Depends on how I go with, you know, my Supernatural rewatch and Unsolved Mysteries and all of the other stuff that I'm watching and all the other hobbies that I'm doing. We will just have to see. Alright, guys. Bye.